and welcome to Steven University. This week we are in news mode for the second time since this hiatus began. We'll be discussing, of course, Diamond Days and the Battle of Heart and Mind, the upcoming two events that'll be happening over sort of the Christmas period and then into the new year. We'll be getting to those in a moment, but first, including the trailer, by the way, we've seen the trailer. We recorded this in time to discuss that. But before we get to that, very quickly, a few bits of admin from our ship episode. Just because it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you know, there's a ton of stuff we missed, obviously. There were a load more ship suggestions once we'd done the episode, which I thought was really interesting. Like, people weren't that invested. There are definitely some people who I think like weren't that fussed when we were like, we're going to do relationships next week, suggest some. And then once we started talking about them, they're like, oh no, but you missed my favourite one. And they actually started chiming in. So I think there might be enough content there for us to come back to relationships at a later date. But there's one or two things I just want to very quickly clear up. First of all, the people saying about Stephen and Connie's age, making them feel, you know, deeply uncomfortable because like they're like 12, 14, whatever how old they are, they're both children. I don't think anyone's expecting them to be married by the end of the series. I just, you know, people at that age do have boyfriends and girlfriends or their romantic feelings for one another. I don't think that's out of the question. I don't think there's anything particularly icky about that. I think that's quite normal, to be honest.
Yeah, there was like Boy Meets World in the early days did it very sweetly with Cory and Topanga. There was an episode where they went on a date. There was a scene where he had his first kiss. Like, yeah. I think it can be done innocently, and I certainly trust this show to do it in an innocent way.
Precisely. And then someone did tag that up, though, with Steven/any adult is honestly unacceptable. And if they ever went down that road, I'd give the show an instant. That's from Pink Coffee. I think that's fair.
I think that's fair.
I hadn't thought about that, but the age gap between Steven and Connie is at most, 2 years? I mean, you're right to say that Steven with even a gem, who isn't technically human, but someone who has lived for hundreds, if not thousands of years, that does suddenly seem quite icky when you put it that way. So
it does with any gem and human. And to be fair to, I believe the user was called Eric
Torres
Eric Torres. He does address the Amethyst Steven age thing in his big comment, but his comment was so big that we couldn't read everything out from it. So he at least does address that. I can't remember the defense. To my memory, most of those kind of ships were named during the crazy period later on, where it was just all sorts of names coming out. Well, So yeah, I absolutely agree that would be messed up.
For listeners who are new, by the way, who've stumbled across us for this episode, if you want to know what we're talking about more specifically, we did an episode on all the relationships in Steven Universe and the ships, some of the insane ships, which have now seen... I mean, there's been some art since the episode, like the Blue Diamond and Barn art that got posted in our Discord after our discussion was brilliant.
Right, okay, it's not weird, is it? Right, okay,
no, it's just Blue Diamond lovingly caressing the barn.
I'm not surprised that an episode dedicated to shipping caused reactions.
Yeah, so if you want to check that out, it's previously on our channel. But the last little note from the shipping thing. People were a little bit... Some people thought I was being a little bit unfair on polyamorous relationships, because there was a point later in the episode when we were like, let's just keep this to the one-on-one ships. Let's not go down the polyamorous route with like 4-way, 5-way ships. Two reasons for that. One was just practically speaking, once we started doing group relationships, Jesus, we would never be done with the ship episodes. Steven University would become Steven, it would be Shipiversity or something like that. Like, it's all it would be. We'd just talk about ships forever, because there are so many different combinations you could do once you sort of spread it that way. But the other factor, and the reason I was like, I wasn't trying to be dismissive of polyamorous relationships as a thing, but what I was getting at was, one, it's impractical for us to discuss those, but two, the show's never going to go there. And before the million of you furiously typing right now the words fluorite into the comments below, let me clarify. The show will never explore a polyamorous relationship in the way it's explored Garnet's relationship, where you see both of those characters separate and then together. I don't think there's a chance in hell Fluorite is ever going to split into all of her components. Rebecca Sugar has off show said on a mic, that's how I perceive that relationship. But in a world where Cartoon Network weren't that comfortable with her doing anything even remotely gay sounding initially, and she had to fight for that, there's no way they're gonna let her do anything polyamorous. Just not.
I don't think anything would surprise me in this show. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did do it in the future. But I certainly don't think any seeds have been sown for it.
Well, no, they set it up with Fluorite. I mean, when Fluorite and Garnet.
No, other than Fluorite.
Yeah, but especially for the ship suggestions we were getting, the whole crew and Lars, and it's like, doesn't seem likely.
Notes from Dan.
Yeah, a few notes just on that episode, because a few comments came through, and I just wanted to clarify my position on it. Yeah. I wasn't being dismissive of the existence of a polyamorous relationship. I was simply, in the context of the show, do not feel it's likely. And therefore not necessarily worth dedicating too much time to discussing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Disagree on whether they're going to... I disagree on whether they might bring it up. I don't think you can say definitely, because you never know. But I can see your point, and definitely we didn't. It was just mathematically, once you start kind of including ridiculous combinations of everyone, we'd just be naming people forever. And also, I don't think we took any of the. I don't think maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I don't think. Well, certainly I can't remember what you said, but I don't think we. Other than those main ships that we talked about, we dismissed Blue Diamond and the Barn and Saphria in exactly the same way any polyamorous ones. So yeah, it's just
I think I specifically said let's not. I think I specifically said let's not get into the bigger group relationships.
Right, okay.
So I think people took that to mean that I don't know, that I had some sort of position on it, which I don't. I just, in the context of this show, the likelihood of it ever coming up is slim. Therefore, I thought our time was better spent talking about the one-on-one relationships. Anyway, so Diamond Days and Battle of Heart and Mind. So let's just hit some.
Apparently, let me tell you something I didn't know, because I'm just going to scare you now by naming this fact. Partly because we've just recorded one of our worst episodes the other day. We thought we had some time dedicated. Peek behind the curtain. We had some time dedicated to record this episode, but then the announcement dropped about the trailer coming, so we decided to postpone that so that we could talk about footage from the trailer as well. But decided to use the slot we had anyway to bank a rewatch of Bubble Buddies, and it's bad. Like, it's a long, tangenty episode. Who knows if we'll even put it out? Like, it's not a good episode. No.
And when people go, "Ooh, tangents! I like the tangents." No, trust me, these are not good.
There's
a
lot of them, and. But just a tangent quickly, just to scare you, Dan, that it will descend into that chaos again. Do you know that apparently water, because I had a glass of water last night and I didn't finish it, so I've brought it with me. And I was like, water doesn't go off, does it? And apparently after 12 hours, the carbon monoxide can begin to affect the taste, but it's likely not to cause damage. So
that's correct.
Fuck it. I'm drinking my old water like a champ, Dan.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I will say that I nearly debated saying to you this week, Chris, like I nearly debated, well, let's get straight into it and like forget my bits of admin. But then I remembered that we'd said in the pre-recorded
Bubble
Buddies one, that we'd done it. So I felt like we had to because we'd already sort of established it. But I was really debating whether it'd be worth doing that because this is an episode that's likely to pull in some new listeners, Chris, and I just feel
but how many of those
if I struggle to fit, if I was debating whether we could fit in legitimate Steven Universe discussion based on our last episode, I mean water discussion is probably off the cards, right?
Well, two things. One, you never know how into water the potential new listeners would be. Three things, actually. Yeah. Two, guarantee you my water thing was less odd for them than your weird 10-minute ship clarification and apology. And number 3,
it was about 3 or 4 minutes, but fine.
I'd love some new listeners. I'd welcome new listeners, Dan. But I'm also about the listeners that have been with us for a long time. Hi guys, how you doing? And they for one are gonna love my water thing. So I'm not about taking over the world. I'm about making the long-term people happy.
To add an extra point to that, actually, and also 4 or 5, whatever number we're on. It's best new listeners get used to this quickly.
Exactly.
This sort of shit comes up too often. Right, let's get into it then. So, Diamond Days. I'll put a little thing in the description if I remember, and I'm sure Cram will remind me if I don't. To say that actual discussion starts at 13 minutes or whatever, wherever we're at.
Let me know if you enjoyed my water fact, Cram.
Anyway, let's do this. So the schedule, for those of you who don't yet know, and this will contain this discussions. We're going to talk about the trailer. We're going to talk about the poster. We're also going to talk about the titles of the next new episodes. So if you don't want to know those because you consider those spoilers, back out now. But let's get into it. So there's 2 events specifically, each one containing 4 episodes. So you're probably thinking, yay, 8 new episodes. You'd be wrong. Legs from Here to Homeworld is still counting amongst this because it hasn't actually aired on television yet. Therefore, it'll be 7 new episodes, 8 if you haven't seen Legs from Here to Homeworld. The episodes will go thusly. Diamond Days event starts from the 17th with Legs from Here to Homeworld. Christmas Eve, we get Familiar. The New Year's Eve, we get Together Alone. And on the 7th, we get Escapism, which is the final episode of the Diamond Days arc, as it were. And then Battle of Heart and Mind is a 4-episode event where all 4 episodes are airing on one night, a little bit like Wanted, and that's January 21st. So there's a week of nothing between Escapism and the next sort of handful of episodes. What I will say, for those of you going, that's nuts, they're releasing content Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, what are they thinking?
Well, I was particularly annoyed because it's slightly impractical for us to record a podcast on Christmas Day. But what's even more amazing is Jess and I were talking about Christmas Day and sort of plans and our traditions and stuff. Because every other Christmas Day we've been visiting her family up north, so we've been in like hotels and stuff, so it's been a bit different. Whereas here we're being in our home. At least for the beginning. And I joked, I went, and obviously at one point I'll have to go off and do a podcast with Dan. And she sort of pulled a face that kind of said, you won't. And I said like, I'm only joking, that won't happen. And then I looked at this list again and I was like, oh shit, an episode actually airs on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Which is, I mean, it is nuts. It's insane. But here's my working theory, and this isn't based on anything other than previous release schedule stuff. So bear with me. But everyone keeps just saying, and even Rebecca Sugar has been doing this on her Instagram and stuff. She's been saying Diamond Days 17th. Diamond Days 17th. Everything's 17th. That's the only date that I'm seeing in any of the promotional material. I think this is going to be like what happened last year with the batch of episodes that lead up to Single Pale Rose, where it was 6 episodes scheduled to air over 6 weeks, ending in Single Pale Rose, but they released the first 4 or 5 of them on the app the day the first one launched. So I think on the 17th, all 4 episodes of the Diamond Days arc are going to be released. So I think from the perspective of people who are happy to watch these things, online through the app, we're going to have Diamond Days, 17th of December, Battle of the Heart and Mind, January 21st, and the Diamond Days arc obviously contain the 4 episodes we've just discussed, Legs from Here to Homeworld, Familiar, Together Alone, and Escapism. And I think Battle of the Heart and Mind's 4 episodes will obviously all drop January 21st. So I don't think we're going to... Because otherwise, what are Cartoon Network doing? If Christmas Eve is the first release of one of the brand new episodes, then the rumours are true. They really are trying to kill this show.
It is a very bizarre decision.
So I suspect we're going to see them all on the app. but ahead of that.
So should we just talk about the synopsises for each one?
Yeah. I mean, I thought you might have some thoughts on whether they were going to launch on the app or not.
No, I think that makes sense. I think, okay. If you want the affirmation, Dan, yeah, I agree. You're a genius. Well done.
That's usually how this works. You know, I say a thing, you say a thing, then I say a thing.
No, I think that makes complete sense. I mean, you could do it as like do you remember that year that Gavin and Stacey was just held back until Christmas so the BBC could do a Christmas special? But I don't think TV really works that way in the States. They're not as big on Christmas specials and stuff or events airing.
No, it's not really their thing. So they tend to put nothing on during the holidays.
So I think all logic would point to what you're saying. And that would be better for us.
Well, that was my question actually, though. Would it? Because I don't know what we do release-wise. If they've dropped 4 at once, I mean, my honest thought would be for us to just still do it week to week, because then it would take us straight up to. It would take us straight up to the Battle of Heart and Mind arc, where then people would be like, then we're not on it with our episode discussions. I don't know. Thoughts in the comments. The airing.
Yeah, it'd be difficult because, well, also it would be very hard to watch 4 and then analyze it episode by episode. In an ideal world, we'd watch one, record one, watch one, record one, but that would be the chances of the schedules aligning over December for that to be possible. Are slim to none.
Well, someone had a really nice idea that I don't know if we'll get a chance to do, but like the idea that you would watch all 4 if they all dropped at once, and I wouldn't. And then
that'd be quite funny.
I would have to watch each one, not knowing where the next one was going, and you would have to be coy and not giving stuff away. It's a nice idea.
That would be quite fun. That's a nice idea.
I don't know how practical that will be in terms of recording schedules and also my patience for not watching new episodes of this show. But I definitely I like the idea enough that I'd be willing to see if we could work that out and make that happen, because I think that's a pretty neat idea.
You'd lie and watch all of them and then say you haven't, and you'd have to pretend to be guessing things that you actually know. I guess it really will be like the early days of the podcast. I'm joking, obviously.
Very good. So I think, I mean, in terms of the airing schedule, I think Cartoon Network are just being very dim here with this choice. But I hope that the app release is due, and that's all part of the thing. They're not very good at making, because this all like they put there's an article that went live with the sort of press release, and like the initial information we got was all so vague, and it was like, and then there was subsequent information releases that we used to put all this together about the schedule and stuff. Like, the initial information just said so little, and it took hours for everyone to start parsing it and figuring out what was actually happening.
It's also like Steven Universe Battle of Heart and Mind intrigues me. So when Wanted aired, were the 4 individual episode titles released beforehand?
Yes.
So it was done differently to this then. So my question is Battle of Heart and Minds 4 episodes with individual episode titles that have been put together, or is it a 45-minute episode?
I think it's 4 episodes that have got a catch-all title like.
I hope it's that, because if it's not that, it lessens the movie a little bit. If it's a 45-minute episode, I'd be a bit like, well, that's weird to give us an episode 4 times the length, or twice, I suppose, if you count Bismuth and that weird one with Greg's relative that was 22 minutes for some reason. It's bizarre. It'd be very bizarre to me. Yeah, it'd be very bizarre to me to do a double-length episode. That would, for me, just shit on the movie just a little bit.
Yeah, because I think what happened, though, if memory serves, I think Wanted was part of, because this not knowing the titles that far ahead of time thing is quite new. Like, for a while, through the Stephen Nuke, we got really far ahead. Like, through leaks and stuff, we had titles for 20 episodes ahead. Like, because I remember all the discussion on like what certain episode titles could mean back in the day. Like, I remember Drop Beat Dad as a title. People were like speculating, is it Greg or is and people correctly guessed Marty might be coming back. There was I remember all the discussion about those episode titles. I think, if memory serves, there was one very giant leak of like 20 or 30 titles that sustained us for quite some time. So when Wanted came about, we already knew it was 4 episodes and what those 4 episodes titles were, if memory serves. Here, I mean, Cartoon Network have not managed to leak a shit ton of titles. We had a few leaked from a French website, which is how we got the titles for, Together Alone and Escapism and Familiar. But that's as far as it goes.
I think the movie's recorded. Like, and to be very, very clear, Zach didn't say anything to us off mic about Steven Universe. All our conversation with Zach about Steven Universe you can hear on that interview. But it's just the way he in that interview and in others has been like, oh, I know a lot about the movie. I just can't say anything. I think the movie's recorded. It wouldn't surprise me if the movie was done. If the movie was recorded, animated, and just sat there waiting for Cartoon Network to stop pissing about.
I think they're just putting the finishing touches on it. I don't think it's quite good to go, but I think it's pretty close. Yeah, I think it's.
Anyway,
I think it'll be done before Christmas. So the people who are speculating that Battle of Heart and Mind is going to be the movie, I think they're incorrect. I think the movie's going to be longer than that.
Yeah, it better be, because that's not a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think a traditional Cartoon Network, movie length episode is 6 episodes worth of content, not 4. So it would be an hour and 10, which on TV would air as an hour and a half because of the adverts.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be an hour and a half of solid content, but I would at least expect it to be an hour and a half of airing time, and this would only be an hour of airing time. Correct. And I don't think you can call that a movie.
Agreed. So I think Battle of Heart and Mind is a catch-all title like Wanted that covers an arc of 4 episodes. I think it's very unlikely that it's going to be 1 episode titled Battle of Heart and Mind. The show's never done anything like that before, and I just don't see any reason why they would change it now.
Yeah. Right. So Familiar meant to be airing December the 24th. Here fans would see a lot of changes in Steven's life that he would end up trying to look for his place in the world. Obviously, it's weird to speculate on the synopses because they can be so irrelevant once you've seen the episode.
Well, there was that brilliant one that tried to disguise the content of an episode by just saying we finally see inside Steven's bathroom.
Yeah.
So it's not outside the realms of the show to do something weird with that.
I will say, though, maybe the best way to do the synopsis thing is to kind of discuss footage from the trailer as well.
Yeah, we'll blast through the synopsis relatively quickly because I think once we get to the trailer, we'll have a lot to say about what the content might contain. So,
so for me, one informs the other. So, for example, he's trying to look for his place in this world. I think Pearl coming to Steven with the backpack and Pearl being like, "You need your belongings, and I belong to you." I think this is from Familiar myself.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I think most of that room stuff takes place in Familiar, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's just Steven and Pearl. I don't know how much of the other stuff comes from that.
I think,
but that's
so.
My
if we're
theory.
doing trailer discussion like right off the bat, the shots that I think are from that episode from the trailer. I think the shot of him going through the hand-drawn pictures of the diamonds is from that episode. I think he finds that in the room. I think the shot of him looking sad and lonely on the balcony is from Familiar. I think I agree that the Pearl interaction with him is also from that episode. And I also think that the ending of that episode is the throne room, is Pearl and him entering the throne room with the small pink diamond chair sort of out front with the 3 other chairs behind for yellow, blue, and white. I think that's pretty much. I think that's the ending of Familiar. That
the pictures. Then I thought it was quite. The implication from those pictures seems to be that we will at least get some description of how diamonds are created. It seemed to be them creating pink, as far as I can tell. They're all like looking. It looks like something's in the ground.
Oh, wow.
And then pinks with them.
You know what, mate? You've sussed something really out there. So the stills I've got of it, it's the three of them on their own, and they're looking sad. And then there's this image of like a pink droplet.
Yeah.
And then there's the four of them, and they're happy. Except for Yellow,
Yes.
who still looks nonplussed, but that's just Yellow, I think.
Yeah, which is really amusing. That made me laugh. But yeah, I think
I
that's
had
them
not
creating
I had
Pink.
not put that together at all. That is genius.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's my thought. Just like one of the few like theory thoughts I have on it. Other than the other scenes look cool and fun, but with that I was like, oh, so they were sad. They did something with like that. I thought it was like a rock or something, but this, it's certainly something. There's something pink like buried or something, and then they all look happy. So I was like, oh, we're going to see them create, or at least hear about them creating Pink.
Oh, I've just spotted another shot. I think is from that episode as well. Actually, sorry, it's the shot of Steven in the armor with White's sort of ship in the background. I think that's from towards the end of that episode when he's got the armor on, and he knows what he's going to face. He's going to face the diamonds and join the diamonds, or not join, but like go to the diamonds. And that's that shot of him with White's ship in the background, and then it ends with them in the throne room, with all the big chairs. Cool. So have you got the synopsis for the episode that follows that?
So in
Together
Steven
Alone?
Universe episode 3, Together Alone, Steven would throw a big party to reunite his family.
Yeah, I think that. A fair few of the shots, in fact, fit that quite well, don't they?
Yeah. I think this is him talking when there's like the pearls are talking about what's fun and stuff like that.
100%. The shot of them all in the room being separated by blue.
Yep.
I think that's from that episode, probably. Maybe him in the bathhouse with Yellow,
which is amazing.
Like,
so funny.
I just him and Yellow in like that sort of steam room is weird. There's so many theories as to what that could possibly be, because there's really not much reason for beings that don't actually have a real physical form to have a place like that. Some people have said it's the thinking room that Peridot described in an earlier episode, which is totally possible. Not a bad shout, in my opinion. Some people have pointed out that you can clean diamonds with steam, but it is potentially... It's risky depending on the diamond. You could damage it if you're not careful with too much heat and too much moisture. So it's going to be very well... It's an effective way to clean them, but it's risky if you don't get it just right in terms of the heat and the water levels. So you could argue that the diamonds clean themselves that way. Seems possible, but it's a bit weird.
I don't think it's anything more than that's what Yellow does to relax. She has a little sauna type thing that she goes to.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, I do feel like you kind of need to explain, though, the saunery element of it. It seems kind of weird that these beings that don't really have physical form, that they would sort of need that, or even to think to build that. It's quite a human idea, a sauna.
But their ships are like legs and stuff. Do you know what I mean? I just think,
but they take humanoidish forms with legs and arms and heads.
Yeah, I guess.
But there's certain things that are just very human, like the notion of a sauna. That I just think like it'd be weird if they had that.
But they had. I'd said the same about the trial and the fact that they have like lawyers
very
and
true.
stuff.
That does, yeah.
That seemed incredibly human. So I don't think they're adverse to chucking those elements in.
I think that the shots of Garnet and Blue Diamond are from this episode as well. I think when Blue Diamond basically says, "Oh, she calls herself a Garnet," or something in that region, and Garnet seems very annoyed. But basically, this is confirming in canon in the show what Rebecca Sugar has said outside of the show, which is that that Garnets exist outside of fusion on Homeworld. Garnet is
cool. I think we talked about this.
Yeah. So the idea is that there is such a thing as a garnet that is a gem that is made. And it just so happens that the fusion of ruby and sapphire leads to the same gem, but it probably looks quite different. I imagine Garnet, as we know her, looks different to a made Garnet, if that makes sense. And I like that Blue is kind of creepily amused by that. She's just like, oh, she calls herself a garnet, does she? It's all very like she's just bemused by it. Like it's just like, this is weird. You guys are weird. Like she's just and like Garnet is obviously quite correctly upset by this. But I think it's weirdly innocent actually from Blue. It doesn't seem hateful like we've had from Jasper.
she seems almost amused by it.
Yeah, like in a pleasant way. Like oh, aren't you a little oddity? Like, aren't you a marvel? Like, yeah, I could honestly see that being a bit misinterpreted by Garnet. It's still a little sort of, pointing out someone for like their differences or whatever. Like that you call that a Garnet or whatever. It's still phrased horribly, but I suppose it's the difference between someone who is like outwardly hatefully racist and like my grandparents who sometimes say ignorant things because they are they don't know any better.
Yeah,
I think there is a difference between true hateful racism and like ignorant racism, and I think this is maybe the lot where the show has like Jasper is full on outright. Then again, Jasper ended up being a fusion herself, so I don't know if that quite works. But I
think your grandparents are fully racist, and you know it, Dan.
I do.
I'm joking. I've never met them.
And if you did, you'd think they were racist. No, I'm kidding. No, my grandparents aren't that bad at all. Actually, I was sort of using my grandparents like I heard other people talk about their own. What's interesting here, though, is Chris. Now, looking through these shots, we've discussed everything in that trailer. So we've talked about the Pearl moment with Steven. We've talked about the Pearls saying about fun. We've talked about the Garnet moment we just discussed. The bathhouse throne room.
Well, on that, how much of a pain in the ass was the trailer? By the way, just give us a shorter trailer with all new footage. Because I was just watching it, like I can't remember some of these shots, and therefore
you can't tell what's new and what's old.
Took me 3 watches to kind of pick out what was new and what we'd seen before.
They did that with the arc that started with Your Mother and Mine. Because you remember on our because I suppose you wouldn't have seen that trailer because at the time you were still watching it episode to episode as we were catching up. But on our Zach Callison interview, I asked him about the Your Mother and Mine trailer and the voiceover for that. That trailer was almost identical in the sense of it was Zach telling the story of Rose Quartz and how the crystal gems formed, then with shots of the upcoming episodes mixed in. Using Your Mother and Mine uses that like weird animated style to do flashbacks.
Yeah.
A lot of those shots undercut what he was sort of his description of how it had gone in the past and stuff, and then they slipped.
I thought that one, because I have seen it since. That one was easier to handle though, because and admittedly I'd seen it since, so I wasn't trying to pick out new footage to old footage. But he was telling a story which we all knew. So he says something happened, we see it happen. It's fairly clear that. Do you know what I mean? I would have thought that one would be easier to pick out than this, which is just. And I've seen like a 1-minute version, the full 2.5-minute version.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's not a brilliant trailer. I think it's. I mean, in the past they have. The problem is they've always had trouble with their trailers though, because even though this one isn't great. Some of the other ones have been really weird as well. Like there was this it's now famously mocked, where it was, I can't remember what event it was for, but it just ended with a really creepy musical note of, the "What We Really Are" line from the full version of the song.
Yeah,
but just echoed repeatedly. So what we really
I've seen that. It's
what
weird.
We really are. And I was just like, I remember, and that, I mean, admittedly, that was, if my memory serves, almost all new footage. And I'm pretty sure it has that really creepy shot in it of the cluster hand hitting the window of the ship as Steven and Peridot go down, which makes the episode seem more like a horror than the actual episode ended up being. But it was an effective trailer, if a misleading trailer. So I mean, that trailer was a good trailer in how it was put together, but it was misleading. This trailer hasn't been put together very well, but I don't feel like it's anywhere near as misleading. I think this is an honest reflection of the content we're about to get, and that's kind of interesting. Before we quickly move on to the description of what I assume is escapism, I want to say that what I noticed, what struck me the most about this trailer and the footage we've just discussed, is how amicable it all is. I really thought we were in for Wanted style Steven on Homeworld, fleeing from White Diamond, chaos, or even something like when they went to the human zoo in the Out of This World. Was it called Out of This World? What was that arc called? When Steven's...
I think it was called Out of This World.
Yeah, when good old Greg got taken. Yeah, Greg got taken. In that arc where it all felt very on the run. It wasn't like just living on Homeworld and meeting everyone. Whereas this is just so weirdly amicable, and I know it won't be. I know it's going to have this insane undertone of. But like now they know he's Pink Diamond. The way they're he's just sort of being integrated into Homeworld. I'm both really excited because I think that's the best way for us to learn cool stuff about how Homeworld works, which is, let's be honest, what we've all wanted from. Well, since before the Wanted arc, really. And the problem with the Wanted arc was he went on trial and then ran away.
You're assuming Steven's going to ask questions, are you?
But he's
sure we're getting that many answers.
But he's not hitting the underbelly of Homeworld here. He's in the. He's in the throne room. Well, by default, we're going to have to learn some things about what life on Homeworld is like, right?
But that fits the family dynamic, and I know there are people out there that don't agree with the view that the Diamonds are like a family. But if a family, if you saw this plot in a soap, the soap, and then one of the characters who they thought was dead returned home, the next 4 episodes of the soap wouldn't be big action pieces. It would be the characters sitting around and talking about it.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yelling at each other and getting emotional.
And the more I think about it, there's a part of me that's like just disappointed because the scale of something like Wanted, would be very exciting. But the storytelling part of me, the part of me that appreciates the narrative of this show and the character work of this show, feels as excited for this as that other voice that likes sort of the epic scale and big movements in the overall sort of plot, if that makes sense. So I'm actually like it's not scratching the itch I thought it was going to scratch, but it's scratching a really good itch. Like, does that make sense? That's a really weird analogy, but and what's funny is with the name like the Battle of Heart and Mind, I wonder if the big epic scale. I wonder basically if this all ends in Escapism with them getting off world, but maybe being pursued by White, and Battle of Heart and Mind is some sort of epic scale thing, like what so between the two arcs you sort of you're covering both ends of that spectrum, the character based stuff where you're sort of looking at the examining all of the ifs and buts and all the morality of all the choices that have been made versus something quite not action orientated as such, but a little bit closer to like Wanted, in that second arc.
Have they said? I can't remember. All of this is the end of season 5, isn't it?
No, the end of season 5 is the next
Escapism.
episode. No, Familiar is the end of season 5. Yeah.
So fucking weird.
Seasons mean nothing. Seasons mean nothing at this point. Unless Cartoon Network decide to change it again, because it wouldn't be the first time they've done that as well, where like episodes have aired and then they've gone, surprise, these were the first episodes of the new season, and we were like, oh, okay, we were counting them as the last of the old. Okay, let me just get my pencil out and change that. So it also wouldn't surprise me if Cartoon Network redrew the lines. But I believe production code wise, Familiar is the season 5 finale. Yeah.
Okay.
Your sigh said it all. That was so good. Yeah. That's how I feel.
It should either make Escapism the end of season 5 or retroactively make Legs from Here to Homeworld the beginning. Because Reunited is the finale of season 5.
Yeah, what a great finale that would be. I'm on board with that, actually. I think that's the best way to do it. I think they need to retroactively start season 6 from here, because I think the gap that we've had between, Familiar and this feels like a season gap. Not sorry, Legs from Here to Homeworld. Oh God, let me get my words out. Sorry,
the airing from the television airing
of Reunited to Here
from Here to Homeworld.
The gap they've put here feels more like a gap you put between two seasons, and I honestly believe like that that was, if anything ever in the history of the show was a finale, it was Reunited.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Escapism would show Stephen using his psychic powers to ask for help. What would that help be? Find out on January the 7th.
Okay, I think I know.
PM. Now, we're gone.
I think I know. I think he is going to psychically. I think at the end of all this, so I think he's going to, be in the room. It's all going to be quite amicable, as we've seen in the trailer. The reason the trailer doesn't show anything from Escapism is because I think at the end of this, he's going to be like, right, heading back to Earth now, and they're like, oh no, you can't leave. You live here now, and they're going to basically eat White, or even the other two diamonds. I think more likely White is going to literally trap him, like we thought he was at the end of the previous episode, and it is going to be about them getting off world when they're trying to be held there. And I think how he's going to get off world is, I think he's going to, while being trapped, I think he's going to psychically link with his memories of Pink, the same way that he's had flashes of Pink's old life in the past. And I think there's going to be a duet across time of the song Escapism between Stephen and Pink. Because when you look at the lyrics, the song Escapism...
that was a theory we discussed on the theory episode, wasn't it?
Maybe.
Other people have said that as well.
Yeah, that's... Well, I've been saying that for a long time. It's definitely been a popular theory. But the idea is that the song linking them across time will lead to him seeing how she escaped on a previous occasion, which will allow Stephen to escape. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that fits. What I like about that is because one of my first thoughts when I read this was, I was like, oh, that means he clearly gets out that room. So do we wait 4 episodes? Because a lot of people thought Escapism was going to be in the next episode with him trapped in that room. But I think the notion of, like you say, it all being good and then it being like, oh no, you're going to be held captive here. He's put back, and then the song happens. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because
and I think anyone else that's theorizing Stephen and Pink duetting is probably bang on the money.
Yeah, I feel really confident about it now. And after having seen this trailer, I feel even more confident about it. It's not happening in the order I thought, but it actually makes a whole lot of sense that everyone thinks they're on the same page. Stephen's visiting to try and figure some stuff out and get the help of White Diamond. The other diamonds think Pink's come home. Everyone thinks what's happening, and it's going to get to this really awkward moment a handful of episodes in where he's going to go, okay, well, I'm headed back to Earth now. And they're going to be like, oh, no.
But the only slight counter to that is he wouldn't be going, right, I'm going to head back to Earth because...
I don't mean literally, but yeah.
No, but he'd be wanting everyone to go back to Earth. The reason he's there is to convince White to help them
precisely
thingamajig.
And when that breaks down and
gems.
He tries to leave, surely that's when they're going to hit. That's when it's going to go from being friendly to adversarial.
I don't know if I can see him leaving though without them agreeing to fix the corrupted gems.
I think White is going to be.
I can't see a scenario where White goes, "No, I'm not going to help you," and then he goes, "Oh, gosh darn it, okay, back to Earth." I might be wrong.
That's a fair point. So, what do you think? What do you think kicks them back into being not adversarial? But
I knew that. No.
Because I think you're probably right. Actually, it's not necessarily in Stephen's character to give up. So, what brings it to a head where they feel the need to sort of trap him? Or do you think he realizes they're not going to let him go, so he needs to make a move quick? Is that what happens? Is he realizes he's more of a captive than he thought he was? And then it becomes I have to get out of here, not because I'm done negotiating with White, but because at this point, if I stay here any longer, I'm in trouble.
I think the party reunites. This is just a complete guess because I'm being asked for a theory, so I'll give one. Pen at the ready, Cram. I think that your hands to the keyboard. I'd love the notion actually, that that Cram was writing all this out by hand and then translating it into the spreadsheets.
I think poor Cram, who has sort of led much of the discussion under our videos in the past and also leads a lot of the discussion in the Discord. I think the fact Cram has become our go-to reference now when we talk about our listeners sometimes is kind of amusing. I know here it's specific because it's based on the spreadsheet or whatever it was that was being created of your theories, but I'm now can't decide if like...
we do mention... Most episodes now we mention Cram, so we're going to try and stop doing that. We'll mention some others. Hey, I'm a big fan of everyone. Slaughter Round, Note Taker, Latty. Big fan of you all. Big fan of you all.
I feel bad for anyone who didn't just get mentioned that talks a lot now.
I know, and but that's no reflection on my fan list for you guys. It's just a reflection of me not wanting to spend an episode listing names. I would list you all if I could.
Montag,
and
Bianca,
those were just the ones that Those are just the ones that came to my mind first. Anyway,
Rangafever,
right.
or Chillabout as he's known in the.
Well, now you're going to make it worse now because I only named 4, so anyone that didn't get mentioned could just be like, oh well, he only named 4, it doesn't matter. But now you've
Anthony?
named more, you're increasing the chances for people to get upset.
Jasper.
This is like I said, guys. He only cares about the new listeners. He doesn't care about your opinions. He's missing people out just for the sake of it.
Anyway. No, I'm really thinking, like, I'm trying to think back now who I'm missing. Cause I'm
exactly.
Missing
so now, anyone that you've not named is going to be more offended because now you're really thinking about it and you can't remember them.
Ron
Whereas
Quixote.
I was just randomly naming...
Quixote. Got one. Who else talks a lot in our Discord? Please, Dan.
So you've done this too. You've absolutely messed up here. I'm legitimately mad at you. Once again, guys. He's after that. He doesn't care because he's trying to bring in new listeners. Doesn't care about the old ones.
IG64.
Right.
Well, wait a second. You're trying to flip this as I don't care about the old listeners, despite the fact that I'm going to the effort to name as many as I can, and you're the one going. Dan, you're going to the effort that's bound to offend someone. I named 4 randomly. If I was a listener and I didn't get named in those random 4, I'd be like, well, I don't matter. He only named 4. He was just giving examples. Now you've named like 10 and have said that you're actively thinking about it. If I don't get named, I'm like, oh Jesus. Well, fine. If Dan's not even going to remember me. English Giraffe. Somebody posts in our Discord sometimes.
I believe
the Doctor Who
Stephen.
Fan. J Bud.
I think.
How can I forget J Bud? Catherine the Mop. Who else?
Well, now it's clear that you're reading them.
I'm not. I could do that, couldn't I? No, because it would just show the last few people who commented, not everyone. Oh no, but there's a list. Wait.
How is this good podcasting now? You're just naming usernames.
Yeah. Why not? Got the power? Right. You're right. I can go into the active users one. Yeah, the Stuart Universe starts with a J. Oh, this is so much easier. I should have done this sooner.
Stuart Universe. Stuart classic user, and you didn't remember Stuart
Radrax,
Universe.
Repellent Zeus. Yeah. Oh, man. Mr. Lots of
Stuart
Chocolate.
Universe.
Who else we got in here that I see regularly posting? You know what? I think I've got most of them. Looking at it now, most of these people I've already named. Hacksaw Unit. Another legend of our Discord. I think that's everyone.
Do you name Bianca?
Yes, right at the beginning.
Yeah, cool. I think
Stephen. Yeah. I'm just doing this to annoy Chris now.
I know. I think that Stephen gets everyone together.
Yes.
For what he thinks is going to be the party, and then because all 4 are, you know what? That took so long. I don't even think this is right anymore. I'm not confident at all now. But anyway, he gets everyone together and in his head to talk about uncorrupting the gems, but the diamonds are like, well, while we're all here, let's do this thing. And they want to do something that's maybe taking over another planet, or they want to do something that White has got an alternative plan now that they're all together, and Stephen refuses to do that. And then it causes... They want him to do something for them in order to even begin to think about doing the corruption thing. And he, whatever that is, will cause harm to someone else or other people, maybe people on Homeworld, people on something else. So it causes a stalemate where they refuse to help him and he refuses to help them, and he ends up back in the cell.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance that's actually... I don't see why you went back on that. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, that's my.
I think that makes. I think that, the idea that the diamonds have like some other business they wish to attend to that Stephen morally disagrees with, which could even lend into the old theory we talked about of there being another race out there, another race of sort of creatures from from space, creatures of beings from space that have been clashing with the diamonds and the and gem sort of civilization, for years or whatever, and have been maybe fighting back and against the gems as sort of like these sort of weird oppressors. I mean, there's sort of there is a whiff of the Galactic Empire about gem society, isn't there? So I think the idea that there's something else they're doing that's morally reprehensible that Stephen sees and disagrees with, and that causes the stalemate. I think that makes perfect sense. I don't know why you backed a little bit out of that. That fits so well.
Yeah, well, because I was just getting frustrated with you and your.
I know, but the more frustrated you audibly got, the more names I read out.
Yeah, I know. So it makes up for it. In Bubble Buddies, I deliberately annoyed Dan, and he's so righteous about it. He's like, "Why are you trying to wind me up? Why are you trying to upset me? Because it's fun." Blah, 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 blah. And you may never hear that, but you've just heard him winding me up for his own amusement.
I think your one went on for longer.
It's typical of a man that was raised by racist grandparents, isn't it?
Right, okay. I see how it is. That's cool.
I want to make it.
You carry on, Chris.
I never want to make another joke like that. That's horrific. Dan's grandparents are not racist, and I shouldn't make that joke. I apologise.
And every time you speak now, this is the noise you're going to hear. Actually, just speak, and you'll find out.
Okay, so you're just going to name a username. Sorry. So then it ends on Steven Universe episode 5, Steven Universe Battle of Heart and Mind, which features Steven facing the biggest challenge of his life so far. So I don't know.
I admire you for trucking on through this, by the way.
Him going, like you say, going against the diamonds, or maybe he has to make a decision. I got bored before you did. Carry on. Takes him away from his family, maybe, or something. I still think Lars is going to end up helping somehow. I'm kind of sure on that. But Battle of Heart and Mind, the obvious suggestion is that, we've got these theories out there that the diamonds each refer to something. Heart, mind, body, soul, whatever. So this is a battle between two of the diamonds.
I think it's... I think it couldn't be clearer that it's going to end up being White and Steven. I mean, it's got to be, right? Yeah. Like, so which would confirm the heart part... And actually kind of confirms the mind part, because wasn't the theory that,
Yeah, the theory being that they needed White to fully uncorrupt the gems because they couldn't quite hold...
So, yeah, so let me do the math again on that in my head. So when they had Nephrite in front of them, Steven touching Nephrite gave Nephrite back her heart, theoretically, if Steven is heart. She got her body back when Blue touched her? Is that right?
I can't remember.
I think it was when Blue touched Nephrite, she got her form back. And then it was when Yellow touched her that the screams became audible words. But she was still not in her right mind at that point, because she was talking like she was still in the past and confused. So I think that tracks completely with that theory, but it would make Yellow's a bit vague though, because Steven clearly gives somebody back like their emotions, their heart, their soul. Not soul, their emotions and their heart. Because Nephrite obviously, when has interacted with Steven in the past, has clearly been very sad about past events. When Steven healed Nephrite to the point where she was last time, combine that with Blue blatantly. I think it was Blue. I might have mixed up Blue and Yellow. I can't remember who touched Nephrite first, but then she got her physical form back. I think it was Blue. And then Yellow was the final hand that touched Nephrite, that gave Nephrite the ability to sort of speak coherent English again. So, yeah, it does still kind of fit with that theory. If you're assuming that this is White versus Steven for Battle in Heart and Mind.
Which, like you say, I think is fair to assume that.
Wow, it's weird that theory keeps coming back up. It's like the third time we've discussed it, but it does seem to fit really well.
Yeah, yeah. Did you not? Was that not your instant kind of thought then on that title?
It was, because heart, body, mind, soul, they're such that it was always a bit vague because it was like who represents what exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like this show has always been quite pragmatic in the details. It's always been quite specific. I found it really weird that there would be something as vague as soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, well, which one is soul then? You know, we saw Nephrite get her body back. Body makes sense. Heart is also a bit vague. What specifically does that refer to? Just their emotions in general? Their empathy? Like, what precisely are these concepts? You know, and which diamond do they each refer to? It was all a bit vague. What the realization that hit me in that moment then when I was just talking about it is that if you're assuming white is mind, my initial thought when I heard that title, you know, a few days ago, was if we're assuming it's White versus Steven, and White therefore is mind, does that really fit? Was Yellow not sort of the pragmatic one? I was running that through, but when I actually sat down and thought about it now, no, it fits perfectly. I think if you're assuming that mind is just, because that actually fits really well with what we think we know about White, which is this idea that she's just this pragmatic ruler that's just like, well, taking planets is exactly what we need to do. Why would we not spread? Like, it just is logical, you know, like, that as a species, it just makes sense for us to. So the idea that she is the embodiment of sort of what Peridot was parroting when Peridot landed on Earth, which is this, it could have been great, you know, looking at that Earth colony or what it could have been, like, that fits White more than I initially thought it did. So it not only does it hint at the theory we already had, which I saw the connection, but I was just like, it's still all a bit vague. Like, who do these things exactly refer to, and in what order, and what exactly do they mean? I just wanted specifics. I just felt like the show doesn't really deal in wishy-washy like as that theory has been. No one's really laid that theory out in a way yet that's completely defined who and what everyone covers, if that makes sense. But White being mind makes so much sense to me now in that moment, and that's what I was sort of getting at.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So then the last thing to analyse is sort of the poster. So for me, the two big things, Connie's sword, and obviously, yes. But the big one was the fact that we see White's hands. Obviously, there's a lot about theories about her holding the planet together. So to see her hands, I was just like, ooh.
That's a really good point, because we couldn't really see her hands in the first episode, could we?
No, we haven't. This is sort of the first time, as far as I'm aware, that we've seen her hands.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that when I saw the poster.
So I was like, oh.
I'm pulling it back up now, just to sort of as a reference point, because that had not occurred to me. No, look at that. Yeah. There's some hands. Yes.
But they're sort of going round them as if they're the world. Do you know what I mean? The other characters form sort of a circle shape. So I don't know if it's meant to symbolise that or.
I think I can't decide if the trailer for this left me less convinced about that theory.
We don't really see White much.
Well, that makes sense, because technically speaking, from a TV perspective, White has yet to be revealed.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at, even when you look at the poster, White is kind of silhouetted a bit. Like she's not defined properly in that poster, is she? She's not fully visible.
No.
And even in the trailer, the only thing of White we see is her eyes opening and her feet. Oh no, we see her feet. In that trailer.
It would have been so easy, though. You could have easily made Yellow and Blue cover up her hands. All you need to do is extend Yellow's hat a bit and maybe make her a bit bigger, and Blue's really easy. You just, the glow around her hand, you just make a bit bigger.
Yeah. I think the only thing I was thinking, though, is like, I don't know why you would... Right? I think because it's just representative art rather than a still from the show. I don't think it necessarily needs to be that practical. So the fact that her hands are visible might not indicate anything. We might be reading too much into it. But I
think Blue and Diamond aren't necessarily reacting to anything. They're certainly representational. Stephen, obviously, we've got in the armour. I don't think the armour looks that cool on Stephen, but there we go.
Oh, I do.
I want to see it used. I want to see it more in context.
Yeah, Stephen in Pink's outfit. We haven't really talked about like this and how he'd get it, but my assumption is in Familiar, he, while in Pink's room before he heads to the diamond sort of throne room, he's basically advised to dress correctly, dress appropriately, and therefore is sort of indicated he should dress as Pink, and therefore does.
But why he dresses like that isn't as interesting to me as where it came from, because this armor's got to have been created somewhere. I think there's something interesting about the notion that Pink's always that Pearl's has had it for ages.
Yeah,
Pearl
or it is just in that room, because we've pretty much. I think most people are in agreement that the room he was sent to at the end of the previous episode was Pink's room, because it's just too funny to not do. Pink was sent to her room as a gag.
Yeah, but Pink's armor's not necessarily going to fit Steve. This has been tailored towards Steven. That's my point. Has Pearl
proportions? Pink was pretty
tall. Has Pearl had a version of Pink's armor
and actually
sized for ages?
Pink's armor, Pink wouldn't have had. I mean, that's part of just Pink's physical form, wasn't it? Because gems don't wear clothes in the traditional sense.
Exactly.
Oh shit! Why did that not occur to me? Yeah, you're right.
So where's the armor come from? And I like the notion that in the back of Pearl's mind, she's been like, "What if this happens?" And she's just been a little bit prepared with that. Well, because I don't remember him packing a bag as well. Did he pack the sausage backpack?
Excuse me, hot dog duffel bag.
Is it hot dog? Yeah. Did he pack that?
Sausage backpack. Fuck you.
Did they pack that before he went into?
That'll go up there with Stuart space? Universe. Stuart Universe has a sausage backpack.
Yeah, but a hot dog is a sausage, and it is a backpack.
Yeah, but I think if it's yeah,
it's not as bad as getting the
duffel
name
bag
of
isn't
the
a backpack,
character
Chris.
wrong.
Okay, a duffel bag isn't a backpack at all. They're two very different things. Backpack you wear on your back. Duffel bag you hold at your side. Number one. Two, I think once you put a frankfurter in a bun, it's a hot dog, and it's in a bun.
Anyway, did we see him pack that? I'm not going to rise to your pettiness.
I think we might have seen him with it. Yeah, before they left.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay. If not, Pearl packed it for him. But it's an interesting point. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it is in the backpack. Maybe Pearl did bring it. That would be very interesting.
I quite like that notion. Connie's sword. You got anything on that?
Yeah, I was going to say the last thing from the poster that struck me was Connie's sword, which there's been a lot of discussion of where does she get a sword from. I think, truthfully, the most boring sort of explanation, which is a real shame because it is quite dull and standard, is that it comes with the armor. Oh yeah. It's not the answer we all wanted. What we really want is for Bismuth to form Connie a brand new, brilliant, awesome sword, but Bismuth's back on Earth and they're clearly not. So it's like, how and when would they be able to go back and get it? With that said, it has been noted that in the throne room scenes that seem to be from, what was the second episode called? Together Alone?
Familiar.
Sorry, third episode.
Oh.
Sorry.
Hold on.
Is that Together Alone?
Yes, it is.
The shots that we think are from that, which is all of them together in the sort of throne roomy type place, or it might not be the throne room. Actually, you can't see the chairs in the background, so it could be a separate room. But that's the sequences where you see everyone together: the diamonds, the pearls, and all of Steven's crew. Connie is wearing a completely different outfit to the one she landed on Homeworld in. So there is some speculation that time has passed and people have been back and forth from home. Some speculation. I don't think that's the case.
I wouldn't like that, because then it just raises too many
questions.
Well, what's going on with Lapis Peridot and Bismuth questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't like that either, and I don't think that's what's happened. I think one possibility is they've been home through Lars, if Lars is knocking about and we don't know that yet. It's possible. That doesn't seem likely either. The other possibility is, of course, that Connie...
I still think Lars is going to be involved, but I don't.
Not
like
this early in
them popping back.
Yeah, I don't see Lars coming into it till Battle of Heart, Mind and Heart, or whatever it's called. That's when I think we'll likely see Lars. I don't think we'll see him in these first few episodes. So the question becomes, where did she get the sword from, and where did she get a change of outfit from? Change of outfit, you could argue that, like Steven, she brought with her, maybe? You know, there's a possibility that, well, Pearl clearly has the hot dog duffel bag. What else was in there? Maybe a change of clothes for Connie too. Not unreasonable. Sorry?
And some armor and a sword.
Potentially, yeah. So that's the question then, the sword. Because again, I wanted the sword to be forged by Bismuth. I really thought that was a nice idea, that she'd return and Bismuth would have a nice sword for her. It's more appropriately sized, but to be fair, I also loved the previous sword for its size. I think it looked really cool. You know, this sort of tiny thing that is Connie holding this enormous sword. It just evoked really, I think it's just a really badass image. The idea that she's got a more appropriately sized sword now disappoints me slightly, especially because in the hands of Stevonnie, that's going to seem like a dagger. You know, whereas Rose's sword fit really well when they got bigger, basically, when they fused. So I don't know. Unless, here's a theory that hadn't occurred to me. You know how the gems can, you know, materialize our weapon? Can Steven materialize a sword with that shield?
Yeah, and then give it to her. Like, that would be a cool moment. Like, he materializes it and then chucks it to her in battle. And then it's artistic representation, and she doesn't get the sword till later, which is also possible.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because we don't see the sword in any of the trailer, do we? So maybe the sword does come into it for Battle of Heart and Mind. And it's like something that's given to them later on.
Yeah.
Like, or that they acquire once they've been back to Earth to grab it from Bismuth.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. But the sword thing is cool. Like I say, for me, I found the hands thing more interesting personally. But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because the sword jumped out to me, but I didn't think of the hands thing at all. Which is weird because that was the theory I was like really pushing. But yeah, I do think it's very possible that she's still holding the planet together, and maybe the thing that they're planning to do that Steven disagrees with, that causes the conflict later on, is that she's sort of raising Pink Diamond to basically replace her as the being holding the planet
leader.
Together. Well, but it's a very different theory.
It's so lovely, isn't it? Though, just to have stuff and just to know when it's coming back.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, we've talked about all this stuff thoroughly. Like, if these episodes air and we're bang on the money with all these theories, I don't know what we'll actually talk about when the episodes air.
Oh, there'll be stuff to talk about.
No,
but it's going to be weird, like, the filler. We've got, obviously, a few weeks in between, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. We might release the god-awful Bubbles Buddy episode.
I think, to be honest, looking at the schedule, I just don't know how we can't now. We've, like, Bubble Buddies. That was not a good podcast.
No.
Arguably, some would maybe say this wasn't either, but
and this has been fine.
Yeah.
But I've had a good time.
Me too, Chris.
Because there's how many weeks in between? This and the 17th?
What's that, sorry?
It's got to be like, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks in between?
It'd be 3.
And even then, if they don't release them on the app, it's like a month until we have a new episode to talk about.
Yeah, because Legs from Here to Homeworld would be the first one released on the 17th. But, I mean, I think there's a chance that we may have more news and stuff to tackle. You know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because I mean, in the build up to new episode releases, surely there'll be more information coming. So we might be able to do another news episode between now and then. But I'm pleased with, like, I'm really proud of some of the hiatus content that we've had. Like, I think we've done some. I think, considering that we've not had episodes for like so long, I think we've done all right. Sort of filling the void with stuff. Considering there wasn't anything on air or any new news
for so long.
Yeah. So I think we did. I think we managed it. I mean, admittedly, it helped that, you know, we got lucky and got an interview with fucking Zach Callison crammed in there, and we were able to talk about all these sort of separate offshoot things like the Flood Order. The problem is now, if there's another big hiatus like this, I think we're fucked, Chris, because I think we've tackled ships, we've tackled theories, we've tackled the Flood Order. What's left?
Get ready for more theories, more ships, and
and some more revisits that maybe don't go as well, like Bubble Buddies.
Like bubble buddies. Cool. Right.
Yeah.
So we might see you next week for that, or it might be some news if we got some news.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, have a lovely day and evening, guys.
Yeah. Have a lovely whenever the hell you're listening to this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So there you go. Thanks for listening, everyone. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
Oh, actually, sorry. No, I'm so sorry to interrupt midway through that. Patreon. Go check out the Patreon. We haven't plugged the Patreon in a very long time, and I keep thinking, why are we not doing that? We're so close to 1,000 listeners. When we get subscribers on the YouTube channel, we have well over 1,000 listeners at this point. When you combine the iTunes and Google Play stats with our YouTube stuff, which is pretty cool. I think we're getting close to like a couple of thousand, which is neat. On sort of average consistent listeners, then it goes up and down for certain episodes based on searchability, I guess. But in terms of subscribers on the YouTube channel, we have like 940-ish, I think.
We're very close. Yeah.
We're so close. We can monetize again once we hit 1,000. That's one way you could help us if you're not already subscribed and you're listening to this on iTunes or whatever. Just if you have a Gmail account, just go over to log in on YouTube, click subscribe, or log out. We don't mind if you however you choose to listen to this at all. But please do subscribe if you're not already. But the other way you can support us while we're still not monetized is if you head over to the Patreon. Even a couple of dollars a month goes into the pot, and it really helps us. So helps us cover server costs, helps us cover website renewal costs, which all of our website renewal costs come out around, it's so annoying, October, November. I forget about it every year because we pay a monthly hosting fee for the podcast itself, but the domain names and the server for the website and all that stuff, a lot of those renewals come out they're yearly payments, and they all come out in September and November. And I have another website that I still pay for pretty much for the email and the email alone, which is my old blog from years ago, and I still pay for that. So I just look at my bank account in October and November and just see all these charges and go, where the fuck are these come from? And then I'm like, oh yeah. So I mean, it's just every year I forget that they're due and then they come out. So yeah, anyone who wants to help give a little bit, if you want to support the show, please do. We don't promote it enough on here. We're idiots, I know. And we also don't do enough extra content for the people on the Patreon. I promise we're working on that. There's so much stuff I want to do for the Patreon, and I'm really sorry that we haven't had a chance to do much this year with it. But you guys are all amazing for continuing to support us despite the lack of any exclusive content.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
But I promise that my intentions are good, and my intentions are to do stuff for you guys going forward. Well, we're in a bit of a pinch point right now where we've had a lot of things culminate with Steven Universe. Doctor Who has unfortunately become a thing. Just in that time-wise, why did we agree to do another podcast? We're fucking idiots. We're just so excitable. Yeah. We're just that'll be great.
And what was amazing was the original plan was for it not to become a full-length thing. And literally, the after I hung up the phone from Dan discussing it, Jess was literally said, "You two are idiots if you think that's not going to become a thing." And I was like, what do you mean? It's only going to be 15 minutes, so just a quick review each week. She was like, that's never going to happen. You're going to end up doing another podcast. And she's like, and that's fine.
Just
that's
admit
cool,
you're doing another podcast.
But just admit that's what you're doing. Yeah. And I was like, no. And she was absolutely right.
Of course she was. As always, our better halves know better.
And because of the quality of the episodes, I'm not sure whether we regret it or not.
I slightly, because it's just become quite a bitter exercise in watching an episode of Doctor Who, realising that it's not that good at all, and then moaning about it for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we could just forget it if we weren't doing a podcast. And of course, when we decided to do the podcast, we were all excited, and it was new Who, and it was potentially going to be incredible, and yeah. Yeah.
And it was literally, the plan was 10-15 minute episodes, which we should know from Steven University that that's not possible, but there we go.
Yeah. Anyway,
why we ever went, you know what, Steven Universe is 11 minutes and we talk about that for 45. We could definitely fit 11 minutes of review of a 50-minute program, couldn't we? Yeah. Ugh. Mistake.
And I'm also working on a scripted thing that's hopefully coming soon that I'm really excited about. But
it's very good. I've had some previews. Get excited Dan's mystery scripted thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I haven't even put a synopsis out there yet. I've just said that there's a thing I'm working on that I'm writing. I've now got nearly 10,000 words of actual content, and then thousands and thousands of other documents. No, thousands of other words across other documents, laying it out. So I'm pretty pleased.
It's really great. I love it.
I'm excited to see where it goes. So thank you, Chris, by the way. I appreciate your endorsement. But again, anything you can do through the Patreon sort of helps cover us for the bills. But also, like, at this point now, it might, like, as we get busier, if we could remonetize on YouTube and the Patreon picked up a bit, you know, it justifies me maybe doing less hours at work, or, you know, that's the direction that, like, if people want like a lot more stuff from us, that's the way to do it. Because if we were sort of earning a reasonable amount through the Patreon, then we could dedicate more time to making even more content than we currently are. So
yeah, I think, well, it'd be nice to. It's been 5 years. It'd be nice we don't. Well, to be honest with you, the first goal for me is just to break even.
Which we're still not doing. I looked into it. We're so close. We are really close.
We are very close to that goal. But at the moment, we are still very actively paying for service and stuff. So yeah. But anyway, however you can help. If you can't help, you haven't got the money. That's cool. We just. But the one thing everyone can do for free is subscribe to YouTube if you haven't already. So
yeah, or review us on iTunes. Review us on iTunes. Cool. That helps big time too.
So a good bit of begging. Right. Let's wrap it up.
Well, we're really good about it. We don't pester everyone every week with stuff.
I know that's very true, actually.
Arguably, we should, because that's the bread and butter. That's how everyone else is successful, Chris, and we're not. We just don't plug the shit we're supposed to be plugging because we're too nice. We're just like, no, we don't want to bother them again with more talk about the Patreon.
No, to be fair to us, it's also inconsistent quality. It's not. Yeah. It's not all about how often we plug.
I think, you know, smarter, better YouTubers than us that actually have turned it into careers have done it through, you know, persistent pestering about things like a Patreon page, and we don't do that, which is both smart and stupid all at once, because it's nice for our listeners that when we do talk about it, it's once in a while, and it's not a big issue. But it's stupid because, like, for example, why we didn't mention the Patreon on the fucking Zach Callison episode, I will never know.
I thought that was, like, deliberate. That was we wanted to not abuse that, because we didn't really plug the show much either on that episode either.
Now, that was intentional. You know. I didn't want to ram our podcast down people's throats if they were just there for the interview, so it came up sort of a little bit naturally. But at the end, to just quickly go, we got a Patreon, it's here, if you want to support, maybe we can do more stuff like this. Feel free, would have been smart, and we're idiots. So yeah, anyway, enough of talk about how stupid we are. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Once again, I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you again next time for another edition of our Hiatus Watch.